Christ our Lord. Amen. The Russian communist lecture included his speech. Therefore, there is no God. Jesus Christ never existed. There is no such thing as the Holy Spirit. The church is an oppressive institution in any way, time, date. The future belongs to the state, and the state is in the control of the party. Just as he was about to sit down, an old Russian Orthodox priest stood up and asked, "May I say 2 words?" The lecturer thought, well, what could he say in 2 words? So in exasperation, he says, "Sure." The old man stood up and he looked out over the crowd and he shouted in Russian 2 words, which is in English 3 words, in Russian 2 words, "Christ is risen!" And back came the roar from the crowd. Christ is risen indeed. For decades, the communist totalitarian state tried to stifle the church, destroy faith, bury God, but Christ triumphed. Christ is risen.
Christ is risen indeed.
Good. A member of one of my former congregations was in Moscow on business, and it happened to be the first Easter after the communist government fell. And he asked where there might be a church that was having Easter services. And a friend took him to a Russian Orthodox church just about a mile from the Kremlin. The church was holding hourly services on Saturday night, beginning at 9 o'clock Saturday night. And when they arrived there for the 9 o'clock service, there were a couple hundred people out on the outside of the church, a few hundred. 250 were admitted to the service, including Bob and his friend. They stood for the service like you stand in Orthodox churches. You think you have it hard here. In Orthodox churches, they stand. There was incense, and there were candles, there was singing, there was chanting. And at the climax of the service, the priest led the congregation outside to proclaim that Christ is risen. And by this time, the crowd was 1,500 people, mostly young adults, young adult age. And Bob was a little apprehensive because, is this a riot? Is this a demonstration? But no, they were standing very quietly, each one holding a candle in prayer, in worship. And by the time of the midnight service, that crowd had grown to over 100,000 people. Christ is risen.
Christ is risen indeed.
Decades of prohibiting religious education could not quench, could not stifle the Spirit. So let's celebrate the resurrection this morning. If you want proof of the resurrection, come next Sunday and hear that sermon. Today we're going to celebrate the resurrection. And let's use the ancient greeting. For centuries, when Christians met one another, one would say, "Christ is risen," and the response would be, "Christ is risen indeed." So let's revive this practice. After the service, say it to one another. When you go home today and see your neighbor, say, "Christ is risen." When you answer the telephone, don't say hello, say, "Christ is risen." Christ is risen.
Christ is risen indeed.
We've been talking about how to succeed, not just survive, throughout this Lent. We began with dream big. Today we end with think triumph. If the communists couldn't extinguish the Spirit, certainly your spirit can triumph. You will never be defeated. Fail a few times perhaps, but never defeated. Because I live, you will live also, said Jesus. Christ is risen.
Christ is risen indeed.
There's nothing that can defeat you. On Easter, the devil was defeated, and the devil has not yet admitted it, but he is dead meat. They thought they were done with Jesus. They hung him on a cross. They put his body in a cave. They rolled a stone across the entrance. He was dead. He was buried. He would no longer hound them, disturb them, challenged them. He was dead. But God had the last word. And when the women went to the tomb that morning, that Sunday morning, they found the stone rolled away, and they saw the cave was empty because Christ is risen.
Christ is risen indeed.
There in the garden, Mary wept tears. And then she saw one she thought was the gardener. And then she saw the Lord. I have seen the Lord, she shouted. And you too can see the Lord. You too can see the risen Christ. He's all around. He's everywhere. Look with eyes of faith. Think triumph. A young mother of 5 children became desperate because of health and financial reasons, financial problems. She decided that life was not worth the living. She took her youngest child, a preschool girl, preschool age, took her into the bedroom, turned on the gas heater without lighting it, lay down on the bed, put her arm around her little girl. She listened to the sound of the gas escaping. And then she became aware that the radio was on in the next room. And for some reason, it seemed important to her to get up and turn that radio off. So she got up and went into the next room, and she heard the hymn. Oh, what peace we often forfeit. Oh, what needless pain we bear. All because we do not carry everything to God in prayer. And in that moment, she realized the mistake she was making. She rushed back into the bedroom. She turned off the heater. She opened the window. She grabbed her little girl and she hugged her tightly. And she said later, and I began to pray. Oh, I began to pray. I didn't pray for help. I prayed a prayer of gratitude to God for opening my eyes. Christ is risen.
Christ is risen indeed.
Oh, a little more enthusiasm. Christ is risen.
Christ is risen indeed.
Now you're waking up. Okay. John Powell, in his book Unconditional Love, tells about Tommy, one of his students. His atheist in residence, he called Tommy, in his theology class. Tommy constantly objected to and smirked at, jeered at the idea of a loving God. Powell called Tommy a serious pain in the back pew. When Tommy turned in his final exam, he cynically said, "Well, you think I'll ever find God?" Powell answered with a surprising no. "But I'm absolutely certain God will find you." Years later, Tommy returned to see Powell. He was thin, pale. His hair was all gone from chemotherapy treatments. Tommy said, "I've got cancer in both lungs. It's a matter of weeks." And Powell was surprised at Tommy's acceptance and his good spirit. And Tommy said, he was only 24 years old and dying of cancer. But Tommy said, it could be worse. Like being 50 years old and having no values or ideals. Like being 50 and thinking that booze and making money are the biggies in life. And Tommy continued. But I came to tell you how, just as you predicted, how God found him. And after Tommy was told he had cancer, he desperately, seriously tried to find God. He banged bloody fists on the bronze doors of heaven. But God did not come out. Then he remembered the class, some of the teachings. And he remembered how Powell had said, the essential sadness is to go through life without loving. And it would be almost equally sad to go through life and leave this world without telling those that you love them. But Tommy decided that he would tell those he loved that he loved them. And he began with the hardest one, his father. He approached his dad, and Dad was reading the newspaper. "Dad," he said. And without lowering the newspaper, Father said, "Yes?" "Dad, I would like to talk with you." "Well, talk." "Well, Dad, it's really important." The newspaper came down 3 inches. And Dad said, "Well, what is it?" Tommy said, "Dad, I want you to know that I love you." Well, the newspaper fell on the floor, and Tommy saw his father do 2 things he'd never seen before in his life. His father cried, and secondly, he hugged him. And they talked together all night. And Tommy had similar experiences with his mother and with his brother. And now Tommy said to Powell, "Here I was in the shadow of death, and I was just beginning to open up to all the people I'd actually been close to. Then one day I turned around, and there was God. God found me." Christ is risen.
Christ is risen indeed.
The sound of Martha's voice on the other end of the telephone always brought a smile to Jim's face. Not only was she one of the oldest members of his congregation, she was one of the most faithful. The children all called her Aunt Marty, and everywhere she went, she just oozed faith and hope and love, like so many people in this church. But on this occasion, there was something different about her voice on the phone as she said, "Preacher, could you stop by this afternoon? I need to talk with you." So as they sat facing each other in the quiet of the small living room, Martha shared the news that her doctor had just discovered a tumor. "He says I probably have 6 months to live." "Oh, I'm so sorry," but before Jim could go on, Martha interrupted him and said, "No, don't be sorry. The Lord has been good to me. I've lived a long life. I'm ready to go. You know that." He said, "Yeah, I know that." He said, "But I do want to talk with you about my funeral." Very healthy thing to do, plan your funeral. They talked, the 2 talked quietly for a long time. They talked about Martha's favorite hymn. They talked about the passages of Scripture that had been important to her through her life. They shared many memories. And when it seemed that they had covered just about everything, Aunt Marty paused, looked up at Jim with a twinkle in her eye, and added, "One more thing, preacher. When they bury me, I want my old Bible in one hand and a fork in the other." He says, "A fork?" He says, "I've heard of everything. You want to be buried with a fork?" She says, "Yes. I've been thinking," she says, "about all the church dinners and banquets that I attended through the years. I couldn't begin to count them all. But one thing really sticks in my mind. At those really nice get-togethers, when the meal was almost finished, a server or a hostess would come by to get the dirty dishes, and someone would lean over my shoulder and whisper, 'You can keep your fork.'" And you know what that means? What's it mean? Dessert. And not just Jell-O or pudding or even ice cream. You don't need a fork for that. A fork means the good stuff is coming. Like chocolate cake or cherry pie, she said. When they told me I could keep my fork, I knew the best was yet to come. That's exactly what I want people to talk about at my funeral, she said. They can talk about all the good times we had together, that would be nice, but when they walk by the casket and they look in and they see my pretty blue dress, I want them to turn to one another and say, "Why the fork?" tell them that I gift my fork because the best is yet to come.